Hello witches and welcome back to A Coven of Two, where we talk witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they. And in today's video we're going to talk about the thinning the veil during Samhain season, which is what we're currently in, and a personal experience of mine as a witch who doesn't have a great aptitude for any of the clairs. I'm not clairvoyant, I'm not all the clairs that I don't remember. So where to start from? First, I'm gonna tell you where we're going so that at least you know, and if you're comfortable with the subject then you can stay on, and if not, I'll see you in the next video. No harm done. So I'm gonna go a bit into my experience with trying and wake up my psychic ability, and I've gone through, guess what, Psychic Witch by Matt Oren and a couple of other books. And then I will go into the ritual that I've done today and the connection that I possibly had with my maternal grandfather, my nonno, and I will tell you what happened to me. And then you decide, and you will have enough details to do something similar if you want. So first things first. How do you awaken the psychic witch in you? Now, I absolutely adore Matt Oren. His style is very approachable. I very much like the fact that in his book he tries to bring together what we know of the supernatural, occult, and best as he can, he tries to explain it in ways that the world has measured and experienced actual things. One of these things that he mentions at the very, very beginning of Psychic Witch is the state of mind in which you can meditate, and then you can manifest, and then you go to make things happen, basically. And he talks about them in terms of different brain waves, and brainwave states are measurable. That's awesome, isn't it? So the standard brainwave that everybody is in when we are awake, we do things, is beta, apparently. And that sort of dreamy state where we visualize, it's called alpha. And it's between alpha... Okay, yes, thank you, Matt. Yeah, the standard one is beta, 12 to 28 hertz. It occurs while we're awake and alert. Alpha, 7.5 to 13 hertz, occurs when we're relaxed, meditating, visualizing, and daydreaming. And alpha has access to the subconscious mind. And then there's theta, which is 4 to 7 hertz, and it occurs before and after sleep. And it's associated with light sleep, deep meditation, deep dreaming, vivid imagery, and high levels of inner awareness. So, great. If you manage to understand yourself like that, I envy you. I will mention a lot of times in these videos that I absolutely adore my practice. I am glad of the space that I found for myself and my inner world in my practice. But like Matt mentions at the beginning of his book, a lot of witches are not necessarily psychic, and a lot of them work blind. Maybe they can manipulate energy, but they don't feel it. And I'm one of those. He mentions a book by Ivo Dominguez Jr., which I've also got, which is The Keys to Perception, which I think that part of his book is based upon. And Ivo Dominguez talked about it as in witches that don't have clairs, therefore they have noirs. So they have sort of these black spots of vision, and they don't have that sensitivity, whether to sense energy and therefore to meditate, visualize, be able to talk to spirits, all that kind of thing. That is not something that I have ever experienced. I like the idea that that's the case. I'm very glad to hear other people's stories about it, but that is not my experience. And even when I work spells, I basically do things and hope for the best and put my best in it, but yeah. Matt has been nice enough that a couple of times when I posted about his books and my having trouble with it at times, he actually replied, he gave advice, and last time that I posted about it, I mentioned I'm trying to read it again. One of the hardest things for me is going through the very first exercise, which is just counting back from 100 to 1. If you manage once, then you do it 3 times. And the point is, when you count to 0, you've arrived in alpha state, you start visualizing. But going 100 to 1, you need your mind not to be disturbed by any incoming thought. And that's hard. So I mentioned that, and he mentioned you should check out Keys to Perception by Ivo Domingos Jr. And I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose at this point. Fair enough, let's try. And then he also mentioned his second book, Mastering Magic, which I haven't seen yet, but apparently in it he has taken a lot of feedback from people that have issues with aphantasia, which is not my case by all means, but I do have a hard time focusing, I guess. People with ADHD have had a lot of trouble. I've heard about the 100 to 1 exercise. I don't have ADHD, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, so maybe there's that. So I've got myself a copy of Keys to Perception, and it's interesting. Ivo talks as well about the different states and talks about getting to alpha to be able to do everything that a witch does, basically. Now, I don't have an issue with visualizing. If anything, I have something close to synesthesia, when you sense something with another sense, supposedly. Does it taste like magenta in here? I think is synesthesia. Synesthesia, then. Like, I can visualize pretty much anything. There is not, whenever a story is told to me, whenever something is talked about, before I can decide, my brain has created the look of the place, especially with places. I create places in my head. Time to me is physical, and it's always been like that to me, but I understand that it's not like that to the world. I have a very physical view of what time looks like. But anyway, let's not get lost there. Something that I do try to do, and I hope usually that it gets me in alpha, is close my eyes and manage to first calm myself, do the standard visualizations of, like, white light around us so that it cleanses and protects us as it expands as well, which, always useful. And something that I found easier in, like, the first exercise that Ivo brings compared to the 100 to 1 first exercise that Matt brings is doing a kind of breath that I think he calls the square breath. And you simply inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and stay empty of breath for 4. And you just do it at least 4 times, if not more. And supposedly this kind of breath aligns your mind, your spirit, your aura, everything. For me, it's easier to focus on that because focusing on my breath while counting, it's enough activity. Basically, if I was just counting, not quite, but breath and counting, okay, I can work with this. So the last week or so, I've been doing that, and I've noticed that I can go as close as possible to meditation like that. By the way, difference that I've recently discovered there is between meditation and visualization. These are not the two same things. So when you start doing further exercises in Psychic Witch about visualizing, the minty sort of cocoon, that is visualization. Meditation is being in the moment, and therefore, ideally, you're just focused on your breath and no thoughts come at you. I don't know, it's crazy to me, but that's supposed the thing. Like, you don't go into what they call monkey brain, where you just jump from a thought to another. No, you can just live with the moment. So, bizarrely, something today happened. Today is Thursday the 26th. Yes, today is Thursday, the 26th of October 2023. A couple of days ago, I saw Bente's video, The Norse Witch, talking about how this full moon that is happening on Saturday would be a great full moon to do prosperity work with. And I was like, oh, I so wish that I could do something like that. But Saturday, I'm not going to have time, that there are so many things happening. And accidentally today, I had to shower at some point, which was, it shouldn't be a challenge, but at times it is. And I know that you see me smiley and all, but you know, we all have our challenges throughout life. Thinking about that over and over, eventually in the afternoon I managed to, okay, now I'm showering. I promise I'm showering. I had a bath bomb that I bought like a month ago. And I bought it to actually do a spell on the 21st of September that I didn't do in the end. And it was based on pumpkin spice. And that was going to be a money spell. And I was like, oh, you know what? It's Thursday, isn't it? Let me do the bath with the pumpkin, and then that will be enough. Ha! Silly me that I thought that I could do something so easy and breezy. No, something that I'm really, really into as well when I do any kind of ritual is magical timing. I don't know why, it hit me the first time that I read about it, and it just stuck with me. So I was like, okay, it's Thursday, we start off well. Jupiter is not very well dignified. In fact, currently it's -5, so maybe not the best thing of that. However, Mars is very well dignified. It's +9 currently. Planetary magic is my thing. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see that from time to time I do post about that. But anyway, Mars is very well dignified, and Mars is fire and action. Let's make things happen. That's what Mars does. And you know what? In half an hour, it's going to be the hour of Mars. I think we're going to do a magic bath here. That's what's going to happen. So I prepared a bath. It wasn't too hot, but incredibly, it stayed warm for an hour, which usually doesn't happen. But anyway, it's interesting, but let's not focus too much on that. I prepared this bath, and I remember part of that spell that I wanted to do on the 21st of September, and it required pumpkin spice, 9 coins, and I don't remember if I don't think it required a candle, so I adapted. And usually when I do spells, candle magic, it's easy, it's there, why not use it? So specifically this time I got 2 candles, one was golden and one was red for Mars. I put some herbs that I charged and I mixed some time ago, and it's called my money mix, and it's all the herbs that in some way are related to money and prosperity, charge them to say, hey, bring money to this house, basically. And sprinkle them around the candles, prepare the candles. I got some cinnamon incense. You know what? Cinnamon is money. You blow it the first of the month in the house usually. Let's bring cinnamon in. Why not? So I have my cinnamon incense. I have my candles. And I get into the bath with the pumpkin spice bath bomb. Chilled. And now, a ritual in the bath is not quite something where I cast a circle or call the quarters, but just in case, I started off with the visualization of white light so that it cleanses me and it creates sort of these cocoons that grows, and there's this white energy, light around me, like sort of a big, big egg that takes me and takes the entirety of the room, of the bathroom. And that feels nice. I had some meditation music in the background. I have a very hard time doing nothing. Meditation is very, very hard for me. But I tried, and I did the breath, 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 empty. And then I asked my patron deities to join me and lend me their power if they feel so inclined. Because, you know, there's 3 of them. I work with 3 of them. I'll make videos specifically about them. But yeah, I feel kind of safe when they're around. That's the thing. The one thing that I've always spent a lot of time about is protection. In my head, I could always spend more. But realistically, that's why even without a circle cast, I felt safe. Because the moment that I called them, I was like, I'm cool. I'm not challenging anyone to try and break in. But I'm cool. They're gonna have my back. And then after a while, I was meditating, and I was, visualizing what prosperity and richness means to me. And to me, it means having enough flow of money coming in that I'm safe looking forward, my family is safe, and I have enough to give back to my community. I have enough to do regular donations to organizations and charities that I know I'm part of, I work with. That to me is prosperity, is what I look up to. And while I was visualizing, the thought came to me, and probably because we're close to Samhain, I don't know. I always have my ancestor altar around, and it's mainly dedicated to my maternal grandparents who raised me. They were basically my parents, actually, but they passed away a long time ago now. And I've had their altar out for like over a year. I think slightly before I even started practicing. And while I was meditating, the thought came to me of, oh, you know what? I really hope that my grandfather can lend me his energy, because my grandfather, I would say, was the patriarch of my family, but he never felt or behaved like that. Along with my grandmother, they were farmers, so it's not like we come from wealth or anything like that. But being farmers in the first half of the 1900s in Italy, they worked very, very hard, and they were able to create a foundation that allowed me to not have to think about where money was coming from for a very long time into my adulthood. Then things changed, and I'm in very precarious situations and all of that. But for a very long time, I didn't have to think about that, and a lot of opportunities I could just take. And that was because of the work of my grandparents, specifically my grandfather. My grandfather, I think I remember my grandmother saying, if heaven exists, your grandfather is there counting money all day, because finally he's safe and he can keep us safe. He had this absolute priority of doing that. And in my head, that's the ultimate definition of the King of Pentacles. He has provided for his family, he has made everybody safe, and everybody can make choices because of the security that he was able to provide. So because of that, I was like, oh, I really wish that I could have the energy of my grandfather. And thinking of that, I just, kept meditating and just literally said and asked, Nonno, if you're here, I'm here to listen. Now, I don't know how to exactly differentiate something that pops up in my head and I've made up or has come to me. I know that the point of being good at practicing meditation should be that you can be able to tell the difference. Is it something that your mind has made up, or is it something that actually you're picking from the other world? And I can't quite answer that. But the things that came to my mind felt very vivid in the moment, felt very obvious in a way in the moment. But the moment that then I stopped and opened my eyes, and I actually called my wife to bring in pen and paper to take some notes, I realized that it was sort of like waking from a dream, where the moment that you are conscious and aware again, information is slipping away from you because you were in another mind state. And that is the one thing that made me think, oh shit, maybe I was in alpha. Maybe that stuff has happened. I haven't just made it up. Because as lucid as I was in the moment, when I came back to the 3D world, opened my eyes and perceived not just what I was seeing or visualizing, but the real world, that information started to slip. And I'm not sure that I was able to put everything down. But in the moment, it felt very, very real. So much so that I was like, oh, I'm just going back and activating old synapses of things that I haven't thought about for a very, very, very long time. And there's, I think, a few things that I still remember. I put them down in my grimoire. Let's see. So the first thing that came to me was something that had to do with my grandfather's surname, which is very unique. And the issue is my mother carries that surname as well. I don't have a relationship with my mother. It's not a matter of, oh, but eventually you forgive your parents because they did the best they could. No, my mother is a narcissist, is a horrible person that I've been able finally to cut ties with, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me. But she was the wrong link in my family. she had no reason or no trauma from my grandparents to grow into the person that she did. And I know that because my grandparents raised me as well. But she was always unsatisfied. Probably she didn't like having to grow up as a farmer. She wanted more. But anyway, I had this feeling, this thought about my grandfather's surname and making a point that it doesn't matter if your mother carries it as well. That was my name, so that is my power. So if you want to carry my energy with you, make a sigil out of it, and I'll show you how. And I made in my head, something made in my head, a sigil with the 5 letters that are the letters of my grandfather's surname. And then I thought, oh, maybe I should put it in my money ball. But then the thought came, no, not in the money ball. You place it in the wallet, because I don't know why. I don't know why, I just knew. So I was like, okay, let's call Raven and I'll write down this sigil. And that was the first thing. And then after that, I saw a road in my hometown, well, the closest city to my village, really. And fair enough, when random thoughts come to my mind, usually it's about places. And I was like, that's a very bizarre thing. Why this road of all places? And then I realized, oh, in that road, there's a hospital, a clinic, which is actually the place where I was born. Legend has it, according to my mother, that my grandparents, very white and according to her, very against the fact that she had a mixed-race child, didn't come to see me on the first day. And that when they came, they said, because I was the only baby of color in the nursery, how all the others were nicer because they were whiter. White babies, when they are newly born, have blue eyes. And so supposedly my grandmother was very much into like that. And when I saw this road and realized, oh, it's where I was born, I had this strong feeling of, it's not true. It's not true that we didn't come the first day. It's something that your mother says, but it's not true. And I would love to be able to verify that. I've never had it against my grandparents hearing that story. But it would change a lot of things if that had actually been the case, if that was actually one of the sub-stories that my mother said to have people pity her. But actually it wasn't true. And again, she does these things because she thinks about herself. She never thought about, if this is a lie, the way that it would impact me, to think my grandparents, much as they eventually loved me, didn't want me, and they manifested that by not coming to see me the day that I was born. And if that is not true, and if they actually were there, it makes a bizarre difference. It shouldn't, but it does. Following that, I saw the cemetery of the village where I come from, where both my grandparents are buried. And I sort of entered this place with my grandfather. And there were a disproportionate amount of people. The cemetery was full, was sort of full the way that it's full on the 1st of November, which is All Saints in Italy, in Catholicism. And so all town is in the cemetery on the 1st of November. It's something that you do to make your dead look good. It's almost similar to what I've heard about Central America tradition of the Day of the Dead. You go there because you make the dead look good, and you like clean the gravestones and all of that. You show yourself off to show your dead off to the other people still alive. It's really bizarre. But anyway, and I entered with him, and there were all these people, but all these people were translucent, so maybe they were spirits, I don't know. And I saw that my grandmother was not in the place where she's buried next to my grandfather, but was close to the grave of my great-grandmother. And there's the story that my grandmother didn't want to marry. She married very late for someone in the 40s. She married at 33, 34. After asking and begging her parents, can I just pay rent and stay here? So in that sense, I guess, if I made it up, that's why my mom made it up. But I didn't voluntarily. If I did, it was a very, very deep process. And then I don't know if I asked, but I had the feeling that my grandfather was basically letting me know these people here are the people that came before you. And we are always here for you. And even if you can be here physically, visualize this like you're here now and we'll be here for you. And it's probably silly, like, I don't know, a lot of these, I had to call my wife and tell it to her to make sure that I could remember. And while I was saying it, I kept crying, and I don't know if I was crying because I was emotional about it, or if I was crying because I was feeling silly if I made this up, or if I'm crying because, I don't know, I still miss my grandparents. They've been dead for, my grandfather for over 30 years, but I've always wished that I had more time with them. But in a way, it also never quite felt like they left. I've known people in my day life longer than I've spent time with them, but probably because, I would say probably because, you know, supposedly the time in your childhood is more meaningful. But really, I think it meant something that they raised me beside the fact that I am genetically part of them. My mother didn't care for me other than a trophy that gave her the credibility of being a mother and so the respect that should come with it. But my grandparents actually cared. And I guess for that reason, the connection that I feel to them is has never weakened. It doesn't matter how long they've been gone. Something that surprised me, and I think is the last thing that I remember from this visualization exercise, waiting for thoughts to come to me while I'm focusing on my breath, I don't know, was something indeed about my mother. And as you can tell, I have very, very fiery, strong feelings against my mother. I am extremely angry at her. I don't know if that will ever pass. But I had this feeling about she will learn, but not in this life. And that felt very matter-of-factly. It didn't feel as angry as thoughts about my mother come from myself, from my own. I don't have that care or their empathy for her, because anybody that has dealt with my mother knows how vicious she can turn and doesn't want to do anything to do with her. So those anger feelings are not going to go anywhere, and that's fine. It's something that I've accepted. It's something that I've distanced myself from. But if I think about her, it's just in disgust and anger. And that thought wasn't like that. It was just like, she hasn't learned in this life. She will eventually, but it's not for this life. And I don't have that kind of about her. So that was also peculiar. Every time that one of these things came to me, I think my thoughts then started to sort of play sort of leapfrog with each other. And so every time I found myself double checking, am I thinking of this? This is coming to me. So every time that one of these concepts came to me, I had to then take a moment and then sort of go down again, if it makes sense. And again, I don't like meditating. I don't like doing nothing. It's very, very hard for me to do nothing. But because of the feeling of having my grandfather somehow close to me, every time I was like, I want to go back. Like, can I get some more? Maybe this is my mind, but whatever it is, it feels closer than I have in 30 years. So can you give me some more? Can I see some more? And the last thing was seeing him in a suit. And after a while, I think I realized it has to do... At first, I thought that it was the suit that he was wearing at my first communion. And then I had this feeling that, no, this is about the suit that he was buried in. And I don't remember... I wasn't even 10 years old when my grandfather passed away. And I remember seeing his dead body. I was in the morgue with my mother, and she was talking to, I guess, the funeral director. and I was left to look on the coffin. And as a curious child, I went with my hand and touched him. And I never felt anything that cold again from a body. That shocked me. I remember that, but I don't remember what he was wearing. And I had this strong feeling in this visualization this afternoon. There was a red tie. That might be the one thing that I could be able to verify, because after 30 years in Italy, your dead relatives get exhumed, put in ossuaries, and so you can keep or you can throw the belongings of them that will be found in the coffin, basically. So that technically I could try and verify. That was the last thing that I knew, that came to me. And so yeah, it started off with the idea of, oh yeah, I need prosperity, and we're close to a full moon, and it's a Thursday, and Mars is well dignified. I wouldn't mind some of that. Yeah, bring the flow of cash coming, and everybody's safe. And then, because in my life, my grandfather was the King of Pentacles that took care of his family, this happened. And I don't know if it's because we're closer to Samhain, so maybe the veil is thinner. I don't know if I'm telling myself things. I know for a fact that that state of mind that I was so sure it was just me, normal me, with my eyes closed, wasn't quite that. Because the moment that I got out of it, if I hadn't written it down, if I hadn't told to Raven, I wouldn't remember it now. Just like when you're very aware in a dream, but then the consciousness that you have when you're awake just takes from something different, and so you're not quite able to remember. Which, with my ability to remember things, it always feels really weird. It always feels like I'm out of control, and I don't like that. Anyway, this is what happened today. I was planning on a different video, which probably will be the next one, and it will be about the first and the last, Vesta, who is my first patron deity. But then this happened, and I had this feeling that before I ended the ritual, like I gave license to go to my grandparents, to my deities, and thank them for their protection. And I had this feeling of like, would Vesta be okay if I don't do this video about her? And I had the feeling, so I connect. In my head, Vesta connects a lot with my grandparents. So it kind of felt like, yes, don't worry, like this is still in a way talking about me. So I just thought of bringing that. And this is what happened. And I don't know, most of it can be in my head. I will definitely try to bother Matt Warren asking, do you think this was alpha? Because it was kind of weird that when I came back to the 3D senses, it was slipping away so quickly, all that happened, and I felt so lucid whilst I saw, and these thoughts came to me. But the moment that I was again in the 3D world, it would have slipped away so fast if I didn't take notes. So I understand when they say any ritual that you do, any meditation that you do, journal it afterwards. True. That's partially why we're here, actually, just to make sure that I have something down. And yes, if nothing else, I hope this was an interesting story time for Samhain season. I am actually going to meet my coven on Monday, so while you're watching this video, to celebrate Samhain with them. Maybe I'll tell you about them as well one day. I will make a poll about what the next video could be, should be, would you like? But feel free to send me a message over on Instagram if you have ideas, if you have questions. And until then, I hope that you have a blessed Samhain, and I hope that we can axe the patriarchy together, because there's need for it. The books that I mentioned are linked in the description below, because they're useful. And I know that it's weird when you have an autistic or neurodivergent brain to be able to actually meditate. You hear what allistic people say and you're like, how do you stand still and do that? the evil part is interesting, and I'm told that Mastering Magic, the second book of Mott, is actually has taken the feedback from Neurodivergent people. So I'm linking that as well, and then I'll get it and I'll read it as well, but I haven't yet, just so you know.